service that day. So, well, I have a confession to make. It may not be a surprise to any of you, but it's also a request for your help. Sometimes I am guilty of mansplaining, and I want to be a better person than that. We've all been the victim of mansplaining at one time or another, and it can happen to anyone. But the term itself makes clear that the perpetrators of mansplaining are usually men, while the victims are most often women. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this term and you're wondering, what is he talking about? I will attempt to explain mansplaining without mansplaining it. So mansplaining is when a man explains something in a condescending or all-knowing manner, implying that you can't possibly understand what he's talking about, that he has a superior grasp of whatever that topic might be. For example, a woman might say, "That house over there is really big." Overhearing this, a man nearby may say, unbidden, "Actually, that house only looks big because, you see, the architect and the builder designed it that way so that it would loom over the neighboring houses and the landscape. And I'm really glad we had this little chat so that I could explain big houses to you." Now, if we're honest, men say that kind of thing all the time because sharing our endless stockpile of knowledge and experience is just what we do. It's only in the past several years or so that I think women have become, and rightly so, pointing out that they really do not require men to explain how everything in the world works. So here's how I came to appreciate that I needed to work on that bad habit. It's because Ellen has mentioned it to me from time to time. And, you know, she's absolutely right. Her favorite example of this is when she asked me something very simple, like, "Hey, David, what time is it?" And I start out by saying, well, the history of timekeeping and clock-making is thus and such. So, as I said, I'm really working on it, and sometimes I will stop mid-sentence, and I'll catch myself and say, "I'm sorry, did I just mansplain that?" And she'll say, "Mm-hmm. Enough talk, now go do something useful." So mansplaining is nothing new. It was not always called mansplaining, in fact. It was just called talk. And the reality of recorded history is that it is men who have done most of the talking about and debating ideas. Of course, it's not as if women had no great ideas. It's just that men's ideas were the ones most often recorded for posterity. Now, ideas are important. And talking about ideas is important, whether it's explaining how a light bulb works or why democracy is better than authoritarianism or how clocks work. Ideas matter. We need them. And the whole notion that ideas are central to human life, well, you know, it's just a given. All the philosophies the world has ever known began as ideas, opinions, things that you believe to be true. That's why for a lot of people, maybe even most people, religious faith falls into the category of an idea. And all of this, I realize, might just sound so obvious, so basic, that it's almost silly to point it out. But we actually have the philosophers of ancient Greece to thank for how we think about these things, including how we think about faith or religion. In ancient Greece, the concept took hold that you are what you think. In other words, you are what you believe. We're still very much locked into that mindset today. For instance, if I say that I believe in a free market economy, then what am I? I'm a capitalist. If I believe in women's equality in all things, then I am a feminist. If I believe in Jesus, then I'm a Christian. So the idea became firmly planted: you are what you believe. And in order to believe in anything, well, then stands to reason you have to explain it a lot sometimes. Maybe the best place in the Bible where that idea crops up is in the book of Acts. The Apostle Paul, well, he's been traveling around the Eastern Mediterranean for years, speaking mostly in synagogues about his conviction that Jesus was the Messiah. Now, in some places, Paul was welcomed warmly and invited to stay. In other places, and we don't read about these quite as much, he was just run out of town. It was after one of those get-out-of-town episodes that Paul found himself in Athens. Now, Athens was a cosmopolitan city, famous throughout the ancient world as the center of philosophy and intellectual debate. It was a place where ideas truly mattered and where people loved to talk about them. And by people, of course, I mean men. Now, while Paul was there, he noticed to his dismay that the city was full of idols, statues, large and small, representing one Greek god or another. And as a good Jew, Paul really hated idols, right there in the first of the Ten Commandments. Don't have any other gods before me. So he began arguing about idolatry when he was in the synagogue. And every day he went out to the marketplace and he debated whoever just happened to be there. And eventually he caught the attention of some local Greek philosophers. And one day they invited Paul to the place where every idea under the sun was debated, the Areopagus. Speaking at the Areopagus, it was the equivalent of a lawyer today arguing a case before the Supreme Court. Big deal. It was the ultimate venue for proponents of big ideas. So Paul stands in front of this august body and he makes his case. And he starts by pointing out that the Athenians even have an altar that's dedicated to an unknown god. Way to hedge their bets, apparently. And he tells them that the God he worships is not a statue made of gold or silver or stone, but the creator of everything, the one in whom, as their own poets have said, we live and we move and we have our very being. So Paul is doing really what everyone does in Athens. He is explaining his ideas. He's explaining why he believes what he believes. And so naturally, the philosophers, well, they argue with him. Back and forth they go, explaining to each other why their ideas are superior. That's just what people do at the Areopagus. They explain their ideas because, after all, you are what you believe. And you'd better be able to explain that. Now, in the end, Paul does gain some converts. But, most of the people listening that day, they remain relatively unconvinced that Paul has really proven much of anything. But the fascinating thing is that over the centuries, Christians have largely bought into the same underlying assumption that these Athenians had. That the way you know you're a Christian and the way you share your faith with others is by how well you explain what it is that you believe. I've got a problem with that, though, because I do not think of Christianity primarily as an idea or as a doctrine or as a set of beliefs to be debated or to be explained. Maybe that's why I think personally, I have a pretty broad view of who fits the definition of being a Christian. Because to me, Christianity is not an idea or a doctrine or a creed. It is a way of being. It's not a philosophy, not a set of abstract beliefs that we just talk about. Being a Christian is about what we actually do. Everyday things. It's how we maintain our relationships with one another. It's how we treat people who have been mistreated. It's how we welcome and we accept people who have been excluded. It's how we give ourselves away in love. It's how we seek, however imperfectly, to behave more and more like Jesus of Nazareth. So, I really cannot make a convincing case for Christianity simply by explaining it. I can only do that by doing my best to live it. Now, I'm not against philosophy or theology or ideas for the sake of ideas, but where the rubber hits the road is not talk, and it's not about ideas. It's how we act. It's what that old song I remember very well from summer church camp means. They will know we are Christians by our love. They won't know we are Christians by how much we talk about being Christians. They'll know by what we do about that. What are we doing to feed the hungry? What are we doing to welcome the stranger? How are we putting ourselves out there for the sake of others? What are we doing to help people to make it through, to navigate this strange and sometimes frightening moment in history? Because, the details of what someone happens to believe, they are not a prerequisite for gaining God's love and acceptance. We already have that love and acceptance in abundance. What we are created to do, what we are called to do, is to not simply talk about our beliefs as if our beliefs define us. It's our actions that define us. Let me tell you a story about a young woman named Hita Gupta. Hita is now in her 20s, but way back in 2019, she was a 15-year-old high school student living in this small town called Paoli, which is just northwest of Philadelphia. Hita had started volunteering in nursing homes and assisted living centers as a teenager, and she would go there once or twice a week to play games with residents, to work on craft projects with them, to lead bingo games. But then COVID hit. The pandemic shut everything down. And suddenly, Hita could not visit those residents whom she had come to love. She couldn't visit them anymore. So later, she told a reporter from CNN that she knew many of these people were completely unable to see their families, and that this had created a deep loneliness and boredom and an anxiety. So she came up with an idea. She started sending goodie bags to these residents. Each bag contained, it was Ziploc, a large print picture book, and an adult coloring book, and colored pencils. Also inside each package was an encouraging note that was written by her little brother, her 9-year-old brother, whose name is Divit. Hita said, "My brother helped me a lot. It's a lot of work." And at first she coordinated with just a few nursing homes, the one that she had been to and a couple others. But then within a couple of months, she was sending these packages to 23 nursing homes in that corner of Pennsylvania. And now initially, she paid for everything out of her own allowance. But when she realized that she could make a much bigger impact, she created a GoFundMe page to raise money for supplies. And she continued doing this for over a year until the public shutdown phase of the pandemic finally ended. Hita said, loneliness is now a bigger problem than ever. We need to let assisted living residents know that they are not forgotten and that they're not alone. So it is people like her, people like Hita Gupta, who, they're why I'm trying to spend less time explaining anything and more time acting. People like her remind me that talking about Jesus absolutely has its place, but acting like Jesus is where it is at. That is how we make a difference. And that's where I need your help. As a group, as a church, we are already doing that a lot, but we can always do more. I absolutely love it when our members act like entrepreneurs of compassion, when we all feel empowered to do good things for our neighbors as well as for each other. I've been so grateful, for instance, for Sandy Roos offering a meditation group every Monday morning for our own members and members of the community. I was so excited about the Layette Drive organized by Esther Dunton and Joyce Johnson back in March. I was thrilled when Bob Wilworth told me we ought to host a program on end-of-life issues for our community. And we are doing that in just a few weeks. That was announced this morning. It's going to be Saturday, June 9th. We support CSA with our food donations. So many people help with that. Pete, Ron, Laura, Lysander, Dan. We serve meals at Life Moves. We're going to show up at the Mountain View Pride Festival on Saturday, June the 20th. Come out and see us. We support many organizations financially and through volunteer work. Everyday, simple acts of courage. They're not going to make headlines, but they're acts of generosity, acts of grace, acts of compassion and persistence and hope. Let's keep it up. Because you know what? Enough explaining. But it's always, always time for doing. Amen.